For starters, I want to say that we should understand really, really well in this drawing and in every drawing that we do, darkness or contrast or increasing the dark values in your drawing is not going to be about pressure. It's not going to be about going to an 8B pencil. Mostly it has to do with unity. And when we say unity, talking about graphite drawing on paper, a lot of times one of the things that we're up against and what we're talking about here is filling the holes of the paper. Now, I could take an 8B pencil and I could sloppily rub that across the surface of a paper and not get a sense of like a real deep, rich, dark shadow. I could take that same pencil, super sharp, conical tip, get into the holes of the paper, make a nice even tone, and get this concept or this feeling of a dark, saturated shadow. Now we see in the drawing right now an area like this, and I can tell you that I haven't used anything except a 2B pencil to get the darkest darks in that area. I've used a 0.3 millimeter 2B pencil, and so I've really dug into the holes of the paper and really filled them in really tightly, especially in this area of the cast shadow from the pectoral here that goes across the abdomen. And you can see you get this really deep, rich, saturated feeling from that shadow. Now, accomplishing this in an area that's really dark is actually a little bit easier than accomplishing it, say, in an area like this where we have halftones or lighter halftones to deal with. In that case, the challenge increases. However, really we are going to rely on the same concepts, which are to make sure that we choose the correct grade of graphite to apply the value in that area. So if I'm drawing in a light area like this, I want to choose an H or a 2H, or even in some places maybe a 4H. Because of course, the harder the graphite grade that we choose, the lighter the value that it wants to make on the paper. And in an area like this or this, we're going to choose a B or a 2B. So like I said, I obviously found this area to be particularly important. There's a lot of variety in it. There's form shadows, cast shadows, very light halftones, transitions into shadows, areas of planes that are full of detail but only lit very obliquely, so facing mostly away from the light source, but still catching some light, some raking light. So a lot of kind of diversity in an area like this, and so a lot of lessons in it. Eventually, also I think that this thigh down here carries a lot of weight, carries a lot of lessons inside, a lot of information inside of it, and so we're going to go a little bit further here. I think probably the last things that I'll really get to is something up here, or even the base down here, which is interesting from a copying perspective. However, perhaps it is not, as I've determined, like the most strictly instructive area. So if you are looking at your Bargue and thinking, what are the areas where you're going to kind of prioritize your time, I would say take a look at the areas that have the most kind of complexity to them and really focus your attention and energy there. And an area like this, as I said before, though interesting, though useful, to me it's a little bit more random. And it brings up something interesting about what it is to kind of make copies or make studies. We could be studying literally anything. We could take, some cave drawings and try to make detailed renderings of them in graphite. And it would satisfy this need to learn how to measure proportion and how to go through a process in a drawing. However, we would not have the visual complexity that we find in Bargues, that we find in the way light flows over classical sculpture. In fact, even the particular kinds of forms that we find in this antique, fairly European style sculpture, it's a language, and that shouldn't be lost on you either. That you're also kind of looking through the eyes, not only of Bargue, but of the artists in antiquity who produced these amazing, kind of timeless artworks. You're following their hands as much as you're following Bargue's. I'm also trying to decide exactly how dark I'm going to go with this. In a way, when I did this actually, this copy originally, I did it in charcoal, so I would have been doing this about 2 times the size, and I would have been doing it in vine charcoal on a really, really rough paper. And there was a lot of focus, I think, certainly in the school that I went to at that time, on values. And I think a lot of this was treated in a way as a value-based exercise. Over the years, I've come to think it's a lot more of a design-based exercise. So it's more about, I think, more about the shapes, more about the structure, more about the form, more about the organization of values, more so than just, can we make something dark? Can we make another thing light? Again, I probably won't do much in this area, to be honest. It's, of course, interesting, but it's a field of values that don't necessarily reveal so much the form. And because of that, it's kind of copying as a relatively random exercise.